seeing possibilities where there are apparently none, I think is a very important attribute for a designer.
I think we also have to like train to create under stress, or like create despite of type of situation. Like despite of this, I'm gonna create. Despite of that, I'm gonna create. Welcome to the Moodboard Podcast. This is Cesar.
And this is Aaron.
And we are two creatives helping people unlock their creative potential by having meaningful and insightful conversations. Today, we want to talk about the powerful feeling of wanting to chase your dream job, and we want to explore potential steps to make an attempt to doing that, because we don't think that is impossible, and if you don't knock on the door, you might never know that someone will probably open the door. So
Yeah.
I think it's fair to talk about making an attempt to working with your favorite designer, with your favorite company, with your favorite brand. And there's been success stories out there about people landing jobs at the dream companies. And in an era where a lot of people are stuck in places that are not using their full potential, I think it would be great for us to explore that topic of chasing a career that aligns with your values, interests, and what are the necessary steps to increase those chances of landing an interview, which should be your goal.
Right. Getting your foot into the door. I think that a lot of those opportunities come from just trying. And most of the time you get no response, but that persistence. I once spoke with a recruiter from Duolingo, and this person is the one that's in charge of recruiting designers for the design team. And I asked them what was the distinguishing factor of people who made it to the team. And they said resilience. That resilience is the marker of these designers that make it to the team. And I thought that's a really interesting choice. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that it's the marker of people who make an impact, because you're not going to succeed in version 1 or the attempt number 1. It's always going to be the process, the learnings that you've had in those missed attempts to really, one, I think, get to a really great result, but also it helps you build character as a designer. Yes. I think
I agree. It's very rare that it's like one, like a how can I say, like it's very rare that you get it right the first time. I think first you have to find the right connection. I think that's a step that might take 2 or 3 steps. Because I think that's very crucial for you getting the foot in the door, is like someone that advocates for you inside the organization to come on board. Because I believe that and this is in my experience, yes, as HR scouts for talent, but they still have to put the talent in front of either the hiring manager or the person inside the organization that is requesting, a designer. So it's important to maybe do a little bit of research about who the decision maker could be, and then you try to establish a relationship with these people.
Yeah. And I also think it has, in addition to knowing who to speak to, who to reach out to, etc., I also want to talk about preparing one's work, preparing one's just a line of focus, if you will. Like you've talked about this many times before, Cesar, where if you're trying to get a job in footwear, your portfolio needs to reflect that, right?
Right.
And the same thing I think applies to if you want to work with, X person, you have to see what kind of work they value, what have they done in the past, and have that influence what you are creating, what you're doing. I think that's the way I'm approaching it now, but I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
I think that's a very good plan. That's a very good plan to first showcase the work and highlight the skills that are needed for the job or that are needed to excel at that job. And then I think it's also important to give them the choice at the end of the interview. Which, by the way, we can maybe also touch about how many projects are ideal to show during an interview, or
Like a
to
work
send.
share?
Yes, or how
Okay.
many projects to, like, I don't want to say the magic number, but interviews are pretty quick. You only have half an hour by default. Half an hour, count
Yeah.
on that. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but I would
Yeah.
have 3 really thorough projects related to the field or the position that you want to apply for, or you want to work, and then I will have a one not loose project, but like maybe the fourth project could be a personal project or
Yeah.
something that highlights your creativity in terms of, like, hey, this project that I did, this last project that I'm presenting, if you have time,
Mhm.
this project that I'm presenting is one of those projects that is like no brief type of approach, and this is what I came up with. Because
Yeah.
I think it's important to show those kind of projects that like have no briefs, because that one highlights and, like, you can flex your creative input that the
Yeah.
company are gonna hire you for.
Yeah.
So
100%.
for me, I would say 3 projects. It's ideal. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really good number. If you have 30 minutes to show this work, I'm curious, how do you I really think that just before I move on to this next point, the fourth sort of one more thing, small kind of creative project is really important to highlight your, what would you say, like your extracurricular skills, or like your, how you operate outside of just like work and project structure and collaborating with others, etc. Like, what do you do on your free time? What's that thing that fascinates you? I think that gives a lot of context about a person. The introduction, I'm always thinking about that. Like, how do you? One thing that I took from a lecture that I once went to at SCAD is someone was speaking, and it caught my attention because I didn't know how to write one. I didn't have one, but the person who was sharing
Mm-hmm.
said it's important to articulate your origin story, like superheroes who have, Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider and became Spider-Man. Caesar became bit by the shoe bug and became an expert shoe craftsman. Like, how do you tell your origin story without like it taking too long to show the actual work?
Right. That's very important. Yes. And those, those first messages have to be clear in terms of what you are looking for.
Yeah.
When you reach out to someone for the first time, it's important to make sure that they go like, hey, I'm writing to you because I'm interested in pursuing a career in design at your firm.
Yeah.
Would be open, if you see fit, would be open to discussing further, attaches my work. Right. Hope to hear from you soon. That's it.
Yeah, totally.
So
it's a great template.
Yeah, it's quick. You're expressing what you would like to do with that connection, and they are sure. Or if there is anything that you can connect with them at a personal level, like maybe they went to the same school. Hey, I saw that you went to SCAD. I'm also a SCAD alumni. And then I'm reaching out to you because I would like to work with your brand. And yeah, the rest is history. But so we're talking about 3 projects. I wanted to like go a little bit of a tangent here. You mentioned you went to a lecture, and what you learn at that lecture has stuck around in your mind, in your brain.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight the importance for class of 2028. Go to every single lecture possible in during school, or just in general. Go to lectures. Go attend and see speakers.
Online or off?
Yes,
both.
Because I had a similar experience.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience with during college, where I gained so much from lectures.
For sure.
And I want to encourage, I think just in general, just go to lectures, because what you gain from it is so valuable. And
you can ask questions too.
Yeah. And during those questions, if you ask a really good question, they're going to pay attention to you, because, at those lectures, they're probably, I'm not saying they're looking for talent at those lectures. But if there is someone really good, hey, let's keep in touch, just keep in touch. And who knows, a couple years later, you finish school.
100%.
And I remember, we met at this lecture. I wanted to explore the possibility of a career, all these things, but you at least have a reason to reach out.
100%. I have a story about that, actually, and I may have told it here before, but my career first started with that connection that I made. Well, a connection that I made by going to a lecture. I was coming into the building at the time where we were studying, and there was someone who was speaking, creative director from a company called Bang & Olufsen. And I remember going in there being a little late, actually, because I had no idea what was going on. But after that lecture, I was like, hey, this is really cool. The people working at this company are really cool. Let me do a little bit more research. And I found out who the designer was behind some of the pieces that I really liked. And I reached out, and the rest is history. But it's so important even indirectly, you might discover companies that are doing really cool stuff, and letting them know that you exist is like the first thing you should do, I think. Which makes me think about the dream jobs now that, or the dream job that I'm currently thinking about. And I wanted to bring back one of the things that you and I have discussed offline, which
Mm-hmm.
is, how do you stand out in a sea of applicants who are also qualified
Mm-hmm.
and who are also really wanting this job? That because all it seems like a lot of dream jobs, especially in the design career, in design space, they're coveted by everyone, right?
Right.
And so how do you stand out in that space where there's everyone's super talented, everyone's wanting it, everyone's willing to work hard? I feel like this is where like creativity and your ways of your unique way of looking at the world can start to differentiate you from the rest.
Right. I would have to say, let's just start by looking at what everyone does. So most people are gonna take the conventional route, which is send an email, send apply online, eh, and just do like digital. They're gonna do digital related attempts of communication. Well, what's gonna happen is, these people are gonna get flooded with messages, and like, I'm sure they're super busy, so they don't have time to go through all the messages. Um, so this is where, once you start thinking with this approach, um, they're probably, you know, so they're probably not gonna see what you send online or messages or emails. Even the application
Yeah.
online, I doubt they might see it.
It's not
So
priority.
right, no priority. Uh, Maybe the system doesn't get your application through for some reason, keywords, whatever, didn't match. So like your application doesn't get through. What might happen is that a colleague of theirs might refer a friend of theirs for the job. And,
Yeah.
when you start thinking about it like that way, then you could start reaching out to other people in the team to help you, give you insight into, hey, what would it take for me to have an informational interview with, with the person hiring. And so that's one. And then the second one would be a highly consider mailing a hard copy of your resume, of your portfolio, and maybe like a leave behind,
Yeah.
something nice. And I know it is the most time consuming one. It's also, it takes a little bit of financial resources to do it if you want to
For
do
sure.
something nice.
For
However,
sure.
that itself, it's a portfolio piece.
Yeah.
And if, let's say, if $100 is what it takes to land a 100K job, I
A
think it's
dream
totally
job.
worth. It's totally yeah,
Yeah.
dream job. Yes, it's totally worth it.
So let me ask you this. Like, right, when are you ready? Like when, because here's what I'm thinking. I feel like when I first started out, I had no idea that, well, let me put it this way. When you really go into a environment where excellence is like the norm, and you're pushed to do your best work, these are the best environments to work in, I think. But I wonder if the dream job sometimes, like you have to do certain you have to have certain experiences to prepare yourself to get to that place. Like you wouldn't just graduate high school maybe and then go work at Adidas or something. I mean, maybe you could, if your high school was preparing you for that kind of stuff. But I'm guessing, I don't know if I have my question really articulated here. I'm sort of just rambling at this point, but when is it time to reach out to the dream job? Do you maintain or do you establish a relationship far in advance so that 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 in your mind you're going to be there in over the next 4 years maybe, or it's going to take you 5 years to get there, or it's going to take you however long, but you just want to make an introduction? Or do you wait until you're ready? I guess that's what I'm asking.
So I would say don't wait until you're ready, because if you wait until you're ready, someone else is gonna come first, and they're gonna, as straightforward as I can be, like they're gonna take your job. I think it's important, as early as possible to express the desire of you wanting to be there, working for that company, for that brand, and you send, just you have to stay on people's radar, and you have to stay on people's mind, and what you could do, it's maybe like send projects that you complete as you go, not necessarily like, hey, I'm ready for an interview. No, you're just, hey man, I just finished this project. I thought you will enjoy it because you're into cars, you're into shoes as well. Here's my project. Just as like sharing, just sharing, and hey, we appreciate your feedback. So in that way, you are sharing your work. They know what people know what you're capable of. So what could happen is like, hey man, like, thank you for sharing your work. Are you looking for an internship, or like, we need some extra help? We really enjoy your work. You share your work. Come work with us, because it could happen before you think you're ready.
Okay.
So by taking the approach of like, early connection, cultivate those relationships as early as you can, and then stay on people's radar by like, checking in, like, I don't know, once every month or so, or like once every 3 months.
Sure.
You saying what you're, let them know what you're up to, what you're working on. And the moment might come before you think you're ready. So I would prefer start early.
Yeah.
And I would prefer being too early than too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
And that was one of my keys of success to landing internships throughout college.
Yeah.
I would start reaching out and applying. Not even applying, because there wasn't openings. I would start reaching out to people as early as December, so that I could, start the internship the following summer next year.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing, now you see online, I have been paying attention on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
From even now, they're starting to, hey, apply for the internships next year.
They're getting super.
Yeah, they're trying to capture talent like as early as they can. So like now, that's why you see around September, like around this time, you're seeing like, oh, apply for internships for summer 2025. Totally. So that proves, that reinforces my point of like, I would rather be too early than too late. And like, I would love to, for you to like maybe share any experiences that you've had with, a success story of something like that you apply for early, and then like they it turned into an opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, I just keep going back to that experience that I was just sharing,
Hmm.
where I reached out to this designer, um, and just basically did what you mentioned earlier, where it's like, hey, really like your work. This is what I do. I'm interested in a job with you. Let me know what you think.
Hmm.
And um, that happened around May. It was pretty. It was pretty late, but there was no mention on the website that
Mm.
there were any open internships or anything like that. And so this is the point that I also want to make, that even if there are no job postings, there is always someone who has the decision power to say, hey, I want this person on my team,
Right.
or uh, make a job for this person. That all those things
Mhm.
are malleable. All those things can be updated and
Totally.
changed. Just because it's
Totally.
not on there doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Or they
It's up
cannot create it.
exactly. So it's up to. This is the thing that I'm personally grateful for getting out of design school, and it's that the possibilities are endless, and we have like pre-programmed in our brains the bias for action. Like, we want to take action. Okay, the job that I want is not on their job posting. That's fine. I'm still going to email them, still going to let them know that I exist and that I want to work on XYZ for them to keep me posted if they're interested, etc. So
Right.
seeing possibilities where there are apparently none, I think, is a very important attribute for a designer,
Yes.
um, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Because I feel like people wanna, maybe have fear of rejection. So
Mm, mm,
they could,
totally.
some people could be afraid of like, well, if there's no opening, that means they're not hiring, or that means that there's nothing there for me. So I'm not gonna waste my time.
Oh,
Um.
dude. Yeah.
So you run into some of those sometimes, and it
Yeah.
happens. It has happened to me.
Sorry. We had some
That's
technical
okay.
problems over here. All right. We're back.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. Folks, we had
Um.
my camera fail.
No, that adds season to the podcast.
All right. We're back.
Um. No, I wanted to quickly ask you, because maybe we can like touch on the topic of uh, you know gathering your ammo, gathering your experience projects to apply for these positions.
Yeah.
And I think like working during college can help you achieve that.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
so like, for example, was you worked during college in the 3D printing lab.
Yeah.
Uh, did you use that experience and that work as as points on your resume, and then as like qualifications that could help you
Yes.
apply for that
Yeah.
job, or reach out to someone?
Absolutely. So as a student, you get exposed to the tools and the machinery and all that good stuff to a certain degree, or to how much your assignments and time allow you to. I had the unique experience of being able to work with the lab and be able to help people solve their problems when they were printing things. So I got to know very intimately the machines, um,
Hmm.
and that became a point of leverage for me when I applied for this job, because uh, this design studio that I was applying to, um, their whole setup was run on these
3D
printers.
printing.
So
Oh wow.
yeah. So it was a good talking point to have, because you just you basically get an apprentice who's trained in setting up 3D prints for printing, preparing models, and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I think if you can get a job at your studio or your school's manufacturing lab or any kind of experience working with the machinery and the tech that you would be working with at a studio is very, very, very good selling point for your experience, because not many people know how to use them intimately, and things would mess up, right? Things would mess up, and they would
totally
need to get calibrated. And so instead of being like, "Hey, boss, things are not working out," instead you're just like, "Hey,
you can fix it. Yeah,
this is already fixed. Whatever."
That's great. Yeah, and I have a similar experience because I became a sample room technician.
Yeah.
During my days, completing my master's degree in accessory design, I was a sample room technician, and as you said, you became intimate with the machines, and you know how to troubleshoot. Because sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's the machine. So if you can have if you have the knowledge how to troubleshoot and how to fix things by fine-tuning the machines, then you're valuable. And not only that, that makes you a better designer, because you are designing for the machine, and
100%.
and you know the limitations of the machine.
It's like a mini manufacturing experience, right? Like it's like this factory that you have on your tabletop, and you know how to work with it. Similar to when you're doing a watercolor painting, the constraints of watercolor. A piano has 88 keys. There's other pianos with different keys, but you get the idea. I was gonna say, dude, I have some crazy stories about this internship, actually, because when I got the email that I was going to interview with this guy, I lost my mind. I was just like, what? 2 months had passed. I had no idea that they had even seen it. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to chat about this?" And I was just like, "Oh my God, of course." And I had the conversation. It went well. And next thing I know, I'm going to Denmark in like a month. And I have barely any money. And so I was like, okay, I guess I won't be needing my car anymore. So I sold my car.
Oh my God.
And used that to get myself set up. But dude, I went through so many crazy things because I did not plan this thing out, like, at all. All I knew was that I was going to have an internship in Denmark, and off I went. And I didn't have a place to sleep one night because of my hostel situation, because it's really difficult to get there. And I had to stay at the studio. And that was a crazy feeling because I knew absolutely no one in Copenhagen at the time. And I messaged my friends who were in Europe, just asking like, "Hey, does anyone know of anyone here who has a room that's open that I can, rent or whatever?" But this particular week was crazy because there was celebrations and stuff, and all the hotels were booked. I was getting to the point where
no.
Yeah. And the hostel, I hadn't booked it. I had already stayed there for like several weeks while I tried
Right.
to find an apartment, and the hostel was all booked because there was like a celebration,
Oh
and
no.
and that whole experience made me realize how much I wanted to stay and
Yes.
see this thing out, because I knew that I was going to learn so much, and I did. But the reason I share this story, this is just one of many, many stories that I have from that time, because I was there for a little over half a year, and it was hard the whole time, not just at the studio, but just living outside of that. And it just really, it made me see how um like how important it is to understand that it's going to be hard to get the things that you want, and
Mm-hmm.
resilience is that key attribute that will help you stand out. Because what I think happens is there's a lot of talented people, there's a lot of people willing to work hard, but how many people are talented, willing to work hard, and also willing to be the last one standing, you
Oh
know?
man, that's very important. Um, because often people jump off ship. They think it's over and they leave. But
Yeah.
you have to be willing to stick around long enough so that you can see at the end of the credits that little piece of the film that
Yeah.
could wrap up or open up
Yeah.
for the next sequel. Um,
Absolutely.
or leave it open ended. Hey, this might be the end, this might not be, but at least I saw it. But yeah, people have to stick around. And
Yeah.
however, it is also important know when to leave. You know,
Yeah.
um,
That was another thing too that I wanted to talk about, you know, um, when you are going through a situation where you're at work, and you feel like you're no longer learning, or
mhm.
um, you're being mistreated for no reason. um, I guess there shouldn't be a reason to be mistreated, but
Just like poor
sometimes,
poor work culture.
yeah, and I find that eh, there's this I think the show The Bear, you know, with the whole kitchen culture and like the chefs being really tough on each other and things like that. I think there is a place for this. There is a place for demanding excellence. And I know how that can be a little difficult for people who are starting out or who are not
Hmm.
used to being in that kind of environment. I want to say, personally speaking, college for me was a mind opening experience, because my bar of quality was down here, but university and this internship experience rapidly brought it up high.
Yeah.
And that process of growth is really painful, because you are you're changing your mental structure from being quite loose and not very accurate to being precise, to being specific, to being very thoughtful about all of your actions.
Hmm.
And um where I was going with this is, sometimes I think the media and film really glorifies the hard ass, and like the person who's like, like, have you seen Whiplash, the film?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Like that
It's
that kind of relationship, I think, is quite, I wouldn't say toxic, but at the same time it, can produce excellence. Um, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I think it was just like, at what point are you,
Are you gonna still take it? You know, like
yeah,
is
like,
this healthy? Is this adding? Is this contributing to my
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
end goal?
Like
Whatever.
at one point, are you ready to just be like, dude, like, you're an asshole. I'm leaving.
Hmm.
Like, you kind of have to have some self-respect,
Right.
uh, for yourself and for your work, or because people won't give it to you, especially when you're
No,
starting out. It's like, it, you know, what,
you
what
gotta
have you,
look. Yeah, the only person looking out for you is yourself.
yeah, it's true.
And
And yeah, I mean, looking back now, I think that I would have put up with less of that less of that, how would you say, interactions, those toxic interactions. I would have put up less with them, um because now I know a lot more about, I guess back then I kind of put up with it because I was like, I really want to learn, and I know that part of that learning process is painful, but after a while you realize, mm, I can create excellence without this other stuff.
right.
That's not necessary. I think Tony
Yeah.
Fadell, he has a book called Build, and in there he has this like chapter on on assholes, and he classifies them.
Oh my
Um,
god, that's so funny.
yeah, and there's ones where he's like, there's the productive one, and like I don't remember exactly, but he has like, the categories of which ones are the ones you should go away from, and which ones are like the ones that are
The
kind of
good
like,
ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Because some
I
people interpret it as being blunt.
Right. And you can also I think you can also sense it, which ones mean well. And because I had I've had similar experience as well. I've had like good people that have been tough um on myself and my career, or like what I've done. And those people are good. But I've also had the just people that don't mean well. And they don't even, and you can tell those by like the fact that they don't give you a fair chance to explain yourself, or they don't give you a chance to make up for your shortcomings. um so like those are like signs that
Yeah.
which one is good, which one is bad. um so definitely I think that's important for people going into the workforce, to be
Yeah.
mindful of, you know if you have watched The Office, you have to start spotting the characters, who is
Yeah.
who does what. And yeah, you have to be sensitive to like team dynamics.
Yeah. And also just like make a decision about who, like who you want to work with, because there are trade-offs, there are trade-offs to working with people who create a toxic environment,
Hmm.
because you I don't want to say that you become traumatized, but you do become kind of, you could pick up on bad habits that you later pass
Oh.
on, and that sort of
Hmm.
thing.
Yes,
Um
totally.
I
Hmm.
love this motto that Johnny Ive's new company Love From has, or they used to have it on their website. Um Now their website is minimal again with their new logo, which is really cool. But one of the things that he had in the website was love and fury.
Oh wow.
And what I understood from this is that it's it's that combination that led to the products that we love the most. from the Steve Jobs, Johnny Ive era. It was love for the craft, but this complementary or contrasting fury for getting design right.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like I share that same attitude because it is coming from a place of love, but you also have to include that obsession and that furious sort of attitude towards getting things done right. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Um, it's it's tough because I think there is a lot of things that come into play, and I think it's different on a case by case scenario. Um, because it comes down to, like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm trying to think. Like, at least in my experience,
Yeah.
it comes down to like tolerance,
Mm.
and then I'm also, I'm okay with certain things happening once in a while, but making sure that they don't become the norm or like how things are gonna be on forward.
Yeah.
Because I think once one things cross that path of like, oh, this is the new norm, then I'm think like, okay, this is not, personal experience. This is for me not the way to operate or to do things.
Right.
So
Can't really create your best work when you're worried about extraneous things, right? Like that
right,
kind of thing.
yeah. Um, I think we also have to like train to create under stress or like create despite of type of situation. Like, despite of this, I'm gonna create. Despite of that, I'm gonna create. Um, so I know it's easier said than done, but we have to train. We have to, in our mind, in our brain, we have to separate or like, yeah, separate and categorize areas that no matter how we're doing, we can still do the job. We can still design, because it is innate in us to create, and we should do our best work despite of the circumstances outside.
Yeah. But it is um something to consider though, like the hierarchy of needs, right? Like being able to be creative and express yourself is the last part. It's the cherry on the top. It's the tip. It's
Mm-hmm.
self-actualization is the last thing.
Yeah.
And I think knowing when to identify that your environment that you're working in is no longer a safe space to continue to take risks or continue to grow and all that is something to be mindful of because people's working styles are different and they
Yeah.
evolve. And I like
Mm-hmm.
this word that you mentioned of tolerance because if you think about it, that whole philosophy of love and fury, that might work for Johnny Ive and people who are working at these levels at
Yeah.
Apple and that sort of thing, because that's how everyone aligns on that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you're working at a small, startup or you're working somewhere else, the people that you're joining might not feel the same way and they might not appreciate all those things. Maybe after work, they clock out and they're like, I'm done, and that's cool. For them, they have a very clear division of work and life.
Yeah.
But, you know, for us or for other people who see work and life sort of woven, and they're really close together, they might have a different tolerance, right? Like there's the Olympic sport athletes, right, who have a high tolerance for training and a high tolerance for excellence, etc. But then you have your little leagues, you have your college leagues or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's a great example, but it's the way I kind of understand that there are levels to this game, and you have to decide and understand where you are and where do you want to go.
Yeah, what tier you want to play. Yeah, and train for that tier.
Right.
Yeah.
And get your work at that level too, because you, for example, if you hadn't had your training in shoes, I feel like it would have been a lot more difficult to get into the shoe industry without that tangible training, right? So one thing builds for the next thing, right?
Right.
So I think that's what I'm starting to kind of keep in mind. It's like, if you have someone that you want to work with, dream job, how can your work start to align with that sort of trajectory?
Yes.
It's a personal journey, I think. Cool. So
no, I think that's important questions, topics to ask yourself. This is for the audience to be mindful of where you are and where you're going in your career, and to place yourself in environments that contribute to your growth and not take away from your growth. And we would love to hear from the audience any stories, any words of advice that you can give us or that you can share with everyone, to make this conversation a little bit more colorful. And I think, is there any closing thoughts that you would like to share, Aaron?
Yeah, I wanted to just add to what you just said. I think the stories that our audience could share with us in the comments, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube, I think it would be just great to continue to collect these stories in the comments, and just to see what people are thinking. I kind of see it as like, if you were to drop a comment in the podcast, what would it be, and put it in the comments on the video. But yes, if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. And it helps our channel grow and helps these videos and these conversations get discovered. So please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. It helps this podcast in a lot of ways.
This is the Moodboard Podcast, and this is Cesar.
And this is Aaron.
And we are two creatives having meaningful and insightful conversations to help you unlock your creative potential. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next week.
See you next week.